Welcome back. I'm Barry Craig. Do you or a member of your family or a friend have a story to tell? If you do, the StoryCorps wants you. The StoryCorps is coming to Murray State University's radio station WKMS, and with us today to talk about the StoryCorps is the station manager and local coordinator, Kate Lochte. Welcome to the program.
Barry, thank you for having me today. And you're the guy for the StoryCorps. You're the man with the stories. We all know that. So you should do it.
Even if they're not true?
Well, even just your stories, none of them are not true, right? They're all gospel.
Well, I always tell my students, if I don't know it, I make it up. That's the life of a historian, you see. StoryCorps, what exactly is it?
Well, it's an Airstream trailer, actually, fitted out as a mobile recording booth. And it is coming to the Courthouse Square in Murray, September 29th.
Just around the corner.
Just around the corner. It'll be there until October 10th. And today, we invited everybody in the Four Rivers region to make an appointment. It goes like this. Every day except Tuesday, October 4th, the StoryCorps opens its trailer doors to people who want to come in pairs and talk with each other about any topic that is dear to them, any life topic. There are a couple of people aboard the trailer. One helps people talk to each other if they have trouble getting started, but that's frequently not the case. The other is a tech who makes the recordings, indexes the topics mentioned for the use of researchers in the future. You get 40 minutes to share stories with the person you come with, and then at the end you receive a CD recording, a broadcast quality CD to take home with you. And StoryCorps folks ask you if you will permit that CD to go to the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress with the index of topics so that future researchers can hopefully get a bead on who we are as Americans at this particular time. And it comes to mind that our visit, the visit in the Four Rivers region, is sandwiched between St. Louis and Memphis stops for this project. And I was speaking with the coordinator for the StoryCorps who's in New York City, and I said, you're going to start hearing Katrina stories. Mm-hmm. Because we believe that the Katrina evacuees who are at Camp Woodman of the World in Murray may come and share stories to make a record of this. Mm-hmm. And that's generally what it's about. Mm-hmm. The appointments are set up throughout the days. Again, they're open on weekdays and weekends, September 29th through October 10th. And you call an 800 number that's showing on your screen, or you make the reservation online.
And what is the 800 number again, just to state the
number? The 800 number is 800-850-4406. And then online, you can go to the WKMS website, which is wkms.org, or directly to StoryCorps, and that's StoryCorps.net. And you can make your appointments that way as well.
I guess people watching this program are thinking, well, gee, I don't have any stories to tell.
Right.
Why would I do this? I've never been anywhere, done anything exciting. So what would you say to someone like that?
Why don't we listen to David Isay introduce, it just happens that StoryCorps has been going on in New York City in Grand Central Station, and people walk by and they make appointments and do it there. Mm-hmm. And
now, who is David?
David Isay is the originator of this concept, and it started in 2003. He's the originator of the whole project. The Poet Laureate of the United States happened upon the booth and wanted to participate, and we have a portion of his audio now.
Well, let's listen to that.
At StoryCorps, we believe that the stories of everyday people are the most important and interesting stories of all. But once in a while, someone with a familiar name drops by. Listen as poet Billy Collins tells his friend Nancy Cobb about his father's penchant for practical jokes.
My dad was subversively funny. He liked jokes. He had a whole kind of Rolodex of one-liners for every occasion. And he was a practical joker as well. He was a sadistic and methodical practical joker. There was a man in his office that he didn't like, and this is back in the days when men all wore fedora hats. And one day this guy came in having bought a new hat, and he was showing it off, and I suppose in my father's view, making the usual ass out of himself. So that afternoon, my father snuck into the cloakroom, removed the new hat, went down to the street and into the hat store and bought two identical hats, had the man's initials and they used to engrave your initials inside as they were in the original. And one was an eighth of a size bigger and one was an eighth of a size smaller. And for probably a month or so, he switched hats on this man, so that one day the man's hat would be up on his head just a little bit, and then the next day it would be down around his ears just slightly. And then I know that 1 week he put the real hat in for 4 days, and then on Friday he put the little one in. And of course the guy thought his head was shrinking and expanding. And
he never told him?
He never told him, no. At some point, much later, I wrote this poem called The Death of a Hat. And it's the closest thing I've written to an elegy for my father. The Death of the Hat. Once every man wore a hat. The ballpark swelled with thousands of straw hats, brims and bands, rows of men smoking and cheering in shirt sleeves. Hats were the law. They went without saying. You noticed a man in a crowd without a hat. You bought them from Adams or Dobbs, who branded your initials in gold on the inside band. There was a person to block your hat and a hat-check girl to mind it while you had a drink or ate a steak with peas and a baked potato. In your office stood a hat rack. My father wore one to work every day and returned home carrying the evening paper, the winter chill radiating from his overcoat. And now my father, after a life of work, wears a hat of earth, and on top of that, a lighter one of cloud and sky, a hat of wind.
Very impressive poem. And I must confess, the sadistic practical joker, I appreciate that because I've been known to do that very same thing. That's a terrific memory peg. And you know, when we talked about this earlier, I thought, what in the world could I talk about? And I could just simply relate to my son, who's been on several of these practical jokes, the things that I have pulled. That's a wonderful way to jock that sort of thing. That's terrific.
Well, you know, I called you to
I did.
try
You
to
did.
try to get you roped into doing
And
this
I
because I
declined.
thought you would be
I
good.
I declined. But I'm rethinking my position
Well,
as we speak.
let me tell you, the very first person I booked, because we were asked to book some folks ahead of time, is Michael Pape, Congressman Ed Whitfield's representative in his Hopkinsville office. And we were asking if the congressman would enter into the congressional record the names of all of the participants of StoryCorps in this stop in the Four Rivers region. And Michael said, sure. And they said, what's it all about? And I said, well, it's family, friends, people who care about each other coming and sharing stories of their life. And he said, well, you know, I think I'd like to come with my mother. And I didn't know her story. His mother, Ursula, who I believe lives in Evansville, grew up in World War II Germany. And she has, through the course of his growing up, told him lots of stories about those experiences, and he wants to preserve those and is our first guest with his mom. And that sets the tone for the kinds of stories we're hoping will come out of all of the counties in our coverage area. And as you know, our reach is southern Illinois, all of far westernmost Kentucky, and northwestern Tennessee. And you know, anybody within driving distance of the Murray Square should consider coming, because you will have for your family an audio memento that some of us are just too lazy to do for ourselves.
And you're absolutely right about that. And as far as the Second World War goes, I read somewhere that only 25% of World War II veterans are still alive. And when these folks die, their stories die with them, and they're incredible stories. We know what the generals and the politicians and the admirals were doing, but what's fascinating to me is what G.I. Joe was doing, what a seaman is doing, and that sort of thing. You mentioned earlier Hurricane Katrina. It puts me in mind, a few days ago we did a program with John Robertson, a Paducah historian, talking about the 1937 flood, and we did one of the what we call a compare and contrast in history class to that. That would be a good topic, would it not? Survivors of the 1937 Ohio River flood to talk about.
Yes, sir.
That.
As a matter of fact, Professor Robertson and his wife are coming to
I
tell
thought
stories.
they might do that. And again, I think that, and folklore fascinates me, as you know, just ordinary things. Hog killing, for example. I was talking to one of my classes about hog killing, and they were looking at me
For a
like,
lot of people, that's a foreign
absolutely, and that's
ritual.
It certainly is, and I told them, I said, next time you have a hot dog, you think about the pig took one for the team to make you the hot dog, you know, and things like that we're losing, and I think it's a wonderful program, and for people who think they don't have a story to tell, if you think about it. Everybody has a story to tell.
Well, the other part of this is that even if you don't have a momentous story to tell, many of the stories are simply parents talking with children about their relationships. I've heard one story, well, lots of lovers come in, old lovers, young lovers, telling about love and sharing that story of how they got married, how they fell in love.
Sort of reminds me of When Harry Met Sally, that part of
Yeah.
the movie where that's good stuff. That's great stuff.
So it's that whole range. You know, you don't have to have had an unusual experience, or if you just want to have a record of a relationship that you treasure, or something about your life that you share with someone else, come get involved with StoryCorps. It's a really neat project that lets us put a face and a familiarity on people who live right around here to add to the project in Washington. Over the course of 10 years they're going to be doing this. This is the very first tour nationally. They got grants from National Public Radio, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and Saturn Automobile Company to take the booth out of New York City, where it's been, as I mentioned, since 2003. And this year they also opened a second stationary booth in New York City at the World Trade Center site to collect stories from people who were there. So they're really working diligently, and that's why I think the Katrina disaster is going to bring a whole new element of archivally important material to the project.
I don't know what that booth was. I walked past that booth. We were in New York last summer, and I walked past that booth, and we were in and out of Grand Central Station several times, so I should have been paying closer attention. I had no idea. I saw that booth and thought, well, that's just they're selling hot dogs in there. I had no idea what it was.
Well, the Murray stop is the only stop they're making in Kentucky on this first tour.
Wow.
Can you believe that?
That's certainly a feather in Murray's cap.
Well, and the advance coordinator, having visited Murray, believes we might be the smallest town on their stop.
Tell us about the gentleman, you said his name was David?
David Isay.
How did he get this idea?
David Isay has produced radio documentaries for public radio for years, and I think I have this correct. I remember listening to one maybe 10 years ago where he was interviewing 2 or 3 kids in Chicago who had watched a child be thrown from the window. And he told the story of the death of that infant child through the voices of 3 little kids who were there. And over the years, I think it just brewed about the way to get at who we are as Americans and what we experience is through everyday people telling what they've experienced, just
Sort of
very
a
simply.
Studs Terkel thing. He did that
Exactly.
for years.
And Studs Terkel has told stories in the StoryCorps
I'd love
book.
to hear those. I'm sure those are wonderful.
Yeah.
That's a fascinating idea. So again, you just show up. And
Well, you must
you
make
make a
a reservation
reservation.
in advance. It's open today, again, at storycorps.net or that 800 number that I haven't got memorized yet. It is 850-4406, 800-850-4406. And you make a reservation starting today. The lines are open, or the online link is open. And the StoryCorps people will talk with you about when you want to come and what day's good, and book you. And then you come and you go into this recording booth and you have a good time.
And if you freak out, there's someone there to help you get the conversation, the ball rolling in
yeah.
that.
And they say that sometimes people are very reticent at first, and they help them with questions like how do you want to be remembered, stories that address stories of the heart. But they say too that people come, they told us of a daughter and father who visited the booth when it was in Appleshop in eastern Kentucky on a pilot project. And the woman came into the booth and said, "Okay, Daddy, tell us the one about," and it happened to be about the first time his family had ever had a loaf of store-bought bread. And then she'd say, "Okay, Daddy, tell us the one about," and it just, she was on a roll, and so was Daddy. And I figure that I know I've already talked with people who are eager to get some stories that their families have treasured recorded.
And I think that it's such a terrific idea in that if you have this it's a CD they're going to do it on,
Right.
that your great-grandchildren will be able to hear how you spoke. Whereas, or do you leave a written record, you wonder how great-grandpa or great-grandma sounded when they talked, what kind of an accent did they have or not, and that's a fascinating idea.
Well, that's the other thing about bringing kids with you is the child you come with is going to have a record not only of you at a certain age, but the child's self is at a certain age to treasure or to be embarrassed by when ages.
Whichever. And that's a 10-year project they're doing. That's
Well, that's what they're planning to do, and they're doing it in phases. And the trailer which is coming through our region is on an eastern leg, and they have a trailer moving out on a western leg. I think they're in Seattle and maybe San Francisco. But as I say, we're just a little stop between St. Louis and Memphis.
What else is going on with WKMS at Murray that our area would find interesting? You mentioned a program that your spouse is doing, 1950s program. Tell us about that.
In the interest of shameless self-promotion.
That's quite all right. Shame away.
No, my husband, Bob Lochte, has produced a program called the Eisenhower Hour.
And I believe your husband was on this program many years ago with regard to the book he wrote about radio at Murray.
That's right.
It's been, more years ago than we care to mention.
That's right, but you can still find out more about it at nathanstubblefield.com.
nathanstubblefield.com. That's good. That's a shameless promotion. That's okay. We do that all the time. So the 1950s. Tell us about the program.
Well, Bob is a historian of pop culture, and he also likes really corny music, and so he spent the last.
I'm sure he wouldn't characterize it as corny.
Yes, he would.
Oh, he would.
Yes,
well, he's an honest man. Okay.
He is.
All right.
And he spent about a decade brewing on this project because he wanted to combine a scan of programs using the music that was on the charts in the 50s, and interspersed the music with the history of the time and the pop culture of the time through literature and self-help books. And for example, he has enlisted the able assistance of many of the faculty at Murray State University in reading segments appropriate to their disciplines. So for example, Michael Cohen, Professor Emeritus of the English Department, is reading Ross MacDonald, segments from those mysteries. We have segments from Dr. Spock, from Argosy magazine, from Better Homes and Gardens, from Emily Post's Etiquette, all of the, from Norman Vincent Peale, the pop literature of that decade in the context of the music of that decade. And we've rolled out a couple of shows at 11 o'clock Fridays on WKMS.
Now, AM or PM?
That would be AM.
AM, okay.
And starting in October, we're also going to be airing the program at 6 p.m. Sundays, and it's called the Eisenhower Hour. And Dr. Bob Lochte is thinking about doing 50 of these original pieces. They're an hour long, but we know for sure that we'll have 13 at the outset.
Well, that's terrific. What else on the agenda down? Your fundraiser will be coming up here soon, I assume?
That's pretty much like taxes, you know. It's inevitable in spring and in autumn. As a public radio service, we call upon our communities to help keep us on the air, and we're very grateful for everyone's support who listens, and from the business underwriters in our region. That's how this station keeps going. We've started a new program at 11 a.m. Monday through Thursday called Commonwealth Classics, showcasing the music of the Paducah Symphony Orchestra and performances on campuses in our region. So I'm hopeful that we can con some music performance out of West Kentucky Community and Technical College. We'll certainly have performances that are easy for us to record at Murray State University, but we want to represent the wealth of classical performance going on right here in our backyard. So we're pretty proud of that program as well. And we've got some Murray State students doing programs. They're far too late for grown-ups to listen to, but we're very proud of them anyway.
And a number of our students, of course, transfer to Murray State historically down through the years, so there's quite a connection between Paducah and Murray. How long has WKMS been on the air now?
Well, you know, the station began as an hour-long show on WNBS.
I didn't know
way back when, and then it sort of got going as another, I think it was a limited access station, an hour of programming about Murray State activities, and then it went up in 1970 as a 13,000 watt broadcast service from sharing the original KET tower near Farmington, Kentucky. And then in 80, Murray State University applied for a power upgrade to 100,000 watts, and they also applied for a location change, and the transmitter moved with the power upgrade to a 500-foot tower on the site of the former Mont, Kentucky, in Land Between the Lakes. And we broadcast from that site now to, as I mentioned, 27 counties. And in Paducah, we I guess it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago, installed translator 92.1 FM. We've also added 99.5 FM in Paris, Tennessee. And just this year, went on the air in Madisonville with 105.1 FM.
So you all reach what, Kentucky, Tennessee, Illinois, Indiana, and I guess Missouri too.
Yeah, parts of Missouri, but the throw, because of the transmitter moving east the western fringe of
Yeah.
our coverage area diminish somewhat.
In a more easterly direction. Yeah.
Correct.
And you're still on the upper floor of the Fine Arts Building? Your studio?
What did Bobby Bryan, our longtime jazz host, used to call it? The lovely rooftop garden. Yes.
That's right. Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a television studio too at Murray, do you not?
Well, on the 8th floor, there's in the middle is the television studio, and there are ancillary studios and classroom spaces around, and then the radio station studios wrap around the south end of the tower. So we get to see all the weather coming up from Tennessee pretty clearly.
I listen to your station frequently, as do a number of our faculty out here, and I recall the weather report. We'll look out the window and see what it's doing, and then that type thing, which is that's the best way, the first hand. In the time we have left, we're about to run out of time. Let's go back to the story core. Once again, it will be set up on the court square in Murray by the courthouse. You make an appointment and you show up in the Airstream trailer. Now the CD, that will be furnished to you, or do you have to bring a CD?
No, you'll get it there to take away.
So all things furnished. You just simply show up for this program.
Now the StoryCorps folks have said that they will ask for a $10 donation on the spot, but it's not absolutely necessary. They waffle a great deal on that because they're interested in people coming and telling stories.
Sure. Now, once they get all this done in Murray, it will be taken back to Washington to the Library of Congress, and what will they do with it?
Well, those will be archived, but we haven't mentioned that everybody who participates will also be asked whether WKMS can air excerpts, whether National Public Radio can air excerpts. And so you might hear yourself on National Public Radio or WKMS. And I haven't said thank you to you for helping us get the word out, and to the Murray Bank for helping us house the folks who are coming around. Murray State University is providing some funds for the project. And may I just also thank the Paducah Sun, the Murray Electric System, Bob Valentine and Murray Life, the Jackson Purchase Energy Company, and Image Graphics. Everybody has helped us get the word out, and we're very grateful. It's sort of like public radio. We can't do without you.
And we appreciate you coming. We're out of time. Thank you for joining me. My guest today was Kate Lochte. So if you're a big storyteller or a little storyteller, StoryCorps wants you. I'm Barry Craig. We'll see you next time.